Hi everyone, this is Miss Cindy with Bedtime Stories, and I'm so excited about this book that I had to wait quite a while to get. And it is very special to me, and I'll tell you why at the end. It's called Grandma Gatewood Hikes the Appalachian Trail. And I'm reading it in the perfect spot if I have to be inside and can't be outside, because I'm sitting under a brand new tree that's in our treehouse room. So this book, Grandma Gatewood Hikes the Appalachian Trail, is by Jennifer Thurms, and it's published by Abrams Books for Young Readers. This is all about a 67-year-old woman who hiked over 2,000 miles. Between 11 children, the clothes to wash, the cow to milk, the garden to tend, the occasional tramp passing through to feed, and one husband, Emma Gatewood rarely got a break, but sometimes she found a way to escape. A long ramble through the hills behind the farm was all Emma needed to set her heart right again. In the spring of 1955, that's over 70 years ago. No, that's 65 years ago. When Emma was 67 years old, her children had all grown up. She left her home in Ohio and she set out to walk the Appalachian Trail. Before we go on, let me just show you. The Appalachian Trail goes from Georgia, just above Florida, all the way up to the state of Maine, close to Canada. Just so you know how far she walked. It's called the longest footpath in the world. The trail stretched along the mountaintops from Georgia to Maine. Emma had read about it in a magazine. The magazine said no woman had ever hiked the entire length, and that it was easy. Besides, it was what she wanted to do. Emma didn't tell her family where she was going, but no one worried. After years of hard work on the farm, they knew that Emma could take care of herself. The Appalachian Trail is about 2,190 miles long, and it passes through 14 states. It follows the chain of mountains known as the Appalachian Mountains, which are over 480 million years old. It takes about 5 million steps to walk the entire trail. Emma wore canvas sneakers and carried a homemade sack packed lightly. She ate berries from the side of the trail and drank from cold mountain springs. She rested under trees and on top of rocks warmed by a fire. Some nights the sky was so big and dark that Emma was afraid to sleep. Other nights she curled up on a soft bed of leaves with plenty of mice to keep her company. Emma hoped to avoid meeting a bear, but she did once, and she chased him off by hollering as loud as she could. The trail ran over hills, across streams, along roadsides, and through small towns. At times the woods felt like a long green tunnel. Sometimes Emma lost her way, but even without a map, she always found it back again. Some mountain farmers didn't know what to make of Emma, with her hair like a wild woman after days and nights on the trail, but most gave her supper and a cozy place to sleep. She often found the kindliest welcome from the poorest of families. Word traveled as she wound her way north, and Emma soon became known as Grandma Gatewood. She's gone from Georgia to North Carolina and Tennessee, and now she's getting into Virginia and West Virginia. Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, is headquarters of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. For this reason, it's called the psychological midpoint of the trail. Emma scrambled up and down steep hills carved by glaciers that had melted millions of years ago. The trail wasn't quite as easy as that magazine had said. And I read that the magazine was the National Geographic, and she read it in a doctor's office, and that's what inspired her. For some fool reason, they always lead you right up over the biggest rock to the top of the biggest mountain they can find, said Emma. The weather turned from brisk and windy to hot and sticky and buggy, to soaking wet, to sunny, sometimes within a few hours, but Emma kept walking. Some days were rather dull, other days the views went on forever. Now she's heading through Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. Pennsylvania is known as the state where boots go to die. Parts of the trail are covered with sharp rocks that are hard to walk on, called Felsenmeer, which means sea of rock in German. Rocks tore the soles off of Emma's shoes, so she held them together with tape. She tried wearing a pair of men's leather boots, but they were big and clunky and slowed her down. Emma chatted with everyone she met along the way. When the newspapers heard about her big adventure, reporters met her at almost every stop. So she's in the newspaper. Soon it seemed as if the whole country was curious about why an old lady would want to walk all that way by herself. Emma answered, "Just for the heck of it," and she kept on walking. By late summer, Emma was over halfway done with the trail. She had no idea that there was a huge hurricane racing up the East Coast. Now she's going through Connecticut, Massachusetts, and then Vermont. So Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont. The storm hit hard. Rain soaked the land and rivers washed away homes. Trees cracked in the wind, smashing to the ground. Emma didn't hear news of how much damage had been done since she was deep in the forest. For her, it was just another day of foul weather. She slipped on a ledge and twisted her knee, but she kept slogging through the wet mud. She tried to cross a rain-swollen stream, but it was flowing too fast, and Emma couldn't swim. Emma was tired. She found a crowded shelter with a group of teenage boys from the city. The hut was tiny and damp, but Emma enjoyed their company, and they liked hearing her stories. The next day, they carried her across the stream. She was on her way again. See the way they're helping her? Emma clung to two men hiking together across a swift-flowing river gorge. She traveled a ways with a troop of Boy Scouts. She was even invited to tea by a note that someone had pinned to a tree. All along the trail, people helped Emma, but after a while, she was glad to be alone again. Now she's heading to New Hampshire, and then Maine is the final state. The second fastest on-land wind speed was ever recorded in 1934 on Mount Washington at 231 miles per hour. It broke the record books and the anemometer used to measure the wind. This is the final point when she's hiking. It's called Mount Katahdin. That's where everyone that finishes the trail takes their picture. As Emma traveled farther north, the pine trees smelled like coming winter. She balanced on mountaintops, scared that the wind might blow her off, but she kept walking. By now, she had almost reached the end of her journey. Park rangers ferried her across the wide river. Just one more mountain to climb. Emma wore every piece of clothing that she carried, plus a coat someone had left behind on the trail. Her last pair of shoes was in tatters. It was bitterly cold. She could barely see through the thick fog and the eyeglasses that she had cracked when she fell. Her knees ached and her ankle was sprained, but Emma climbed, crawled, and pulled her way up the mountain until at last she reached the top. Emma sang a verse from America the Beautiful as loud as she could. She had set out to hike the entire trail by herself, and she did. Less than 2 years later, she did it again. "I wanted to see some of the things I missed the first time," said Emma. And here's all kinds of notes about the trail and about each state she walked through and other books that are possibilities to read. And the very last is the timeline of how the Appalachian Trail got formed. So this is a really cool book in our biography section. All right, so I told you that this book was very special to me. I've been reading a whole lot about Grandma Gatewood and about the Appalachian Trail because my oldest son, Greg, who they call, because he has a trail name now, Captain America, is hiking the Appalachian Trail. So this first picture is a picture he sent me of his pack. It weighs about 34 pounds. It's got a pad on top to put under his sleeping bag. Inside his pack, he has everything he needs. He has food, he has his tent, he has a sleeping bag, he has some extra clothes. He has water hanging off the sides and a water filter, and he has his camp shoes so that he can take off his hiking boots because his feet are so sore each day. So that's the pack he's carrying. Then we'll move on to one of the first nights, that beautiful sunrise in the morning. That's his tent. I watched him practice setting up his tent, and it feels and looks kind of like wax paper. I cannot believe that can protect him from all the rain and the wind that he's been in, but he's doing it. This picture is from yesterday, and if you look really, really close, let me show you right there. There's a eagle or a hawk or something flying, but he is hiking it through the clouds. So that was, and we'll go on to the next one. This is when he's saying goodbye to North Carolina. He's got a little bit more to hike in Tennessee, and then he'll be heading into Virginia. Virginia is a very big state to walk through. It's a third of the Appalachian Trail, so it gets a little bit boring. And my goal is to meet him somewhere along the line before he reaches Maine. So, thanks for listening to the story, and tune in next week for another one.